Apologies for this.
I want to welcome everybody to our second Café Scientifique today. The topic is restarting the economy after the COVID-19. I'm here with Professor Kyriakos Koupeliotis, the Provost of BSBI. And I would like to welcome each one of you. Welcome Mr. Frank, Regional Director of Azur Hotel Collection. Welcome. Welcome Peter. Peter is a renowned author with extensive experience in Asia and Japan. He's going to share his insights today with the art of kintsugi and how it is connected with restructuring without forgetting. Welcome. Are you here, Anna? Anna Schnekker?
Yes, I'm
Anna,
here.
welcome.
Hello, so nice to see you.
Project manager of the initiative of Berlin Investment Bank, BWP project. She's going to share some insights on the boost it is given from the Ministry of Business Affairs and Energy in cooperation with Investment Bank of Berlin into the entrepreneurship sector. Rashid Mansoori, are you here? Rashid? Rashid will join in a while, probably. Dana, the CEO of Qatar Stock Exchange Market. Shumaira, are you here? Shumaira, are you here?
I am. Thank you so much for having me.
Shumaira Izeksen is the CEO of World Tourism Forum Institute. Welcome. It's a pleasure to have you. And Rashid, are you here? Rashid will join us in a while. So I would like to start with the challenging times we are currently facing. We have detrimental changes, not only the economy, but overall in the society. It's not to be compared with just a simple crisis, banking crisis, as it was 10 years ago. This is most like the effect is like the war, the global war. Actually, what Professor Kyriakos has to say?
Well, let me welcome you as well to our second scientific Café Scientifique event. Many thanks to Anastasia that managed to organize this event in these difficult times. We all know that this is very challenging for our faculty, for our student community, and also for our partners. But events like this that are focused on what we should expect after this public health crisis are very fruitful for all of us. So once again, I would like to thank for your participation, your dedication, and that you want to spend some of your time discussing with us. I wish that the third Café Scientifique, or probably the fourth, to be conducted with a live audience, and that we have you around us, and also our students and some of our colleagues. I'm sure that all of you are waiting to hear each other and cross-communicate. So the floor is yours. So let's start, Anastasia.
Let's start from Frank. Frank, we know that tourism sector is the one that is affected the most of this current crisis. What are your expectations? How it is expected to recover? What are your initiatives? And from your experience also in Berlin.
Hello, good afternoon, Frank Hoerl. Yes, first of all, hope you travel all soon again. This is a unique opportunity after 1 year. We've seen and we're going through the same process as we've done last year. When we recovered kind of in April, May, June, when everything came back to life. Of course, everyone was looking at simplifying processes with the given resources, because that's one key fact that we're missing resources. We have had problems with labor in the past years in hospitality. And we will be suffering even further and more in the future because many people left the industry. We didn't have the same amount of people coming to Germany, or let's say to Europe as well, for working in the industry. So the key fact actually is that we have to invest into digitalization, which was always difficult for hotels which want to deliver personalized service. So obviously we've took initiatives like digital check-in processes and check-out processes, so you hardly see a guest. This was also because of the hygiene restrictions. However, in our industry, it's a bit difficult, let's say about 4-star plus and above, to take away the personalized service. Nevertheless, we're offering that in parallel. In general, we expect in our business, and I know you're not from the industry in that group, we're expecting the so-called low-cost and hostel business, groups business like students, universities, schools. There's a very big inbound travel as well from schools in Germany. They tend to travel for the so-called Schullandheim. They will come for sure. This is safe, and we've seen already a lot of business on the books starting end of August. We used to have that business already in April, May, but it was now moved to the continuation of the restrictions until August, September, October, November. So that's the first business to come back. Same with the students coming from all over the world. We have already, the hostel is open at the moment. We have about 120 guests with us, which are mainly students from all over, from India, from Asia. We have Australians, we have South Americans with us. They're all looking for apartments. And the worst case scenario, of course, is they cannot attend university. Universities are closed, so they have to study in their rooms. They cannot spend time in the public areas. This is forbidden by the restrictions. So they have to, they can come down, use a kitchen, cook there, and then they have to go up to the room again to spend their time for the studies. So that's really challenging times. However, again, the hostel business is the first to recover. For hotels, we see so far that obviously the hybrid meetings will continue and hybrid exhibitions will continue. We're all happy to have soccer being back again, but soccer is without spectators, without any visitors. Any other sports activities will remain without visitors. Same with fairs. We don't see fairs to happen again before late autumn. So we're talking October, November. We have the huge Berlin Marathon usually end of September. We don't expect that, yeah, it may happen, but then everyone will come with PCR tests and this whole lot of discussions about vaccination. Once again, countries which are even worse in terms of infection rate and vaccination rate compared to Germany or continental Europe will not visit Germany, will not come for these type of events. So we see again that this year, 2021, will be a year not to be considered. We're expecting low occupancy levels and very low average rates because the hotels which we've been seeing closing or going into insolvency are usually family-run hotels, smaller businesses, 50, 60, 70 rooms, and not the branded hotels, which there's, of course, now an opportunity for the branded hotels to take over other properties. And we see already a lot of activities from the investor side in properties, either going into lease agreements or purchase of real estate, of hotel real estate. That's the current state, what we see so far in generic Germany, but in particular for Berlin. So not very much promising for this year. And in the future, we also expect that the hybrid meetings and exhibitions will continue. So the demand for the city and for other, let's say the 5 top cities in Germany will decrease definitely until the next coming years. Everyone is saying that before 2024, we will not expect the same occupancy levels and same rate levels as we had in 2019, which was already one of the best years. Yeah, otherwise, I mean, digitalization is obviously has always been a focus, but yes, it is depending on owners, it is a big issue. for many. And we see that a lot of startups and apps, or let's say creative apps, are approaching us. So they keep us busy in yes, meeting them somehow, and of course there's an interest, but there's always an investment. And if you would not know how you continue a business, you will obviously not sign any contracts or any agreements. That's a bit the challenge at the moment. I would imagine that they will continue for the next 2 months, and then we will see definitely a growth in that business as well for our industry. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Fran. Thank you very much. Shumaira, what would you, what are your insights regarding the tourism industry from your position in a global scale?
So thank you so much for having me at this very important discussion. So, the way the situation currently is, in recent years, governments have made a lot of progress in building the travel and tourism sector as part of the broader agenda to grow and diversify national economies. And that's the trend we saw in our organization in 2019, 2018, that the governments were engaging more and more than previous years where travel and tourism. They saw that there is an opportunity for this to be a catalyst to bring about diversity and change and economic development into countries, especially in developing world. So we saw that there was a lot of take in Africa, because a lot of countries in Africa, the leadership there, they wanted to harness the power of tourism to bring that diversity and change into the economic agenda. But of course, COVID changed all of that. And it's been a very, very difficult crisis. And most of the travel has got halted. This is a significant disruption, but the long-term fate of the industry is still largely within the government's control. There are specific steps that transportation and tourism ministries can take to create a stronger travel industry when the crisis ends and the recovery starts. The economic impact will be severe, that's very clear. The industry accounts, it's a known fact, about 10% of the world GDP, which could have up to 50 million jobs at risk, according to a lot of statistics that have been pulled through from major UN WTO, WTTC. Within the GCC, which is the Gulf Cooperative Council, but right now I'm in Dubai, we estimate that the tourism revenues could decline by 14 billion to 17 billion, excluding airlines. Assuming that pandemic lasts for 2 quarters, a drop of over 30% for the next 2 quarters if it continues. In addition, up to 400 tourism-related jobs just in this part of the region could be lost, and at a time when unemployment levels are already very, very high. To mitigate that damage, we as World Tourism Forum Institute, we are working very closely with certain governments without naming them individually, that what can be done. And there are about 5 actionable points that we are proposing to them. Number 1 is to set clear policies. Governments should adjust national policies to facilitate travel, for example, by digitization and enhancing the processes to issue travel visas. Authorities can also introduce new health and quality standards for tourism providers. Doing so will rebuild some of the confidence in the industry. And number 2, we are advising is the marketing and the promotional campaigns. This is really essential. You cannot underestimate. A lot of organizations and governments are actually pulling back on marketing and promotion, but we're saying that you mustn't do that. This is absolutely necessary to build a library in waiting of marketing and promotional campaigns that can be launched at the first sign of the crisis ending. And as part of this process, authorities should reassess upcoming business and leisure events and consider how different scenarios for the end of the crisis and recovery could affect demand. So they need to be in that state of readiness. Although when the demand comes, it really depends on the vaccine rollout and how efficient certain countries are, in implementing all the SOPs around that. Also, the third thing that we are advising is that governments should continue to consider making investments in travel assets now that the valuations might be low. Prices will rise again. After the crisis ends, as the global travel industry remains structurally sound. Okay, possible acquisitions include travel distribution assets such as travel agencies, both in person and online, apps, as just has been mentioned, and spend more on technology. How is it that we can make the sector more smart, more advanced? So technology investments should focus on serving all tourism services across the entire value chain, including tours, excursions, accommodation, air travel, and so forth. Number 4, which is very essential, is giving financial support to tourism companies. Given the scope of the lost revenue during the crisis, there are a lot of small businesses which are going bankrupt. Authorities can also provide debt release and expand across the credit. I'll give you one example, is because I'm actually from Canada, that the government was very, very fast when you compare to some of their neighbors. I don't want to name the countries, in getting the relief across to the small businesses. And in fact, they've just done a policy shift, because all the money that the government was putting on the table for the small businesses, it was on the agenda that eventually 6 months down the line, you have to start repaying that debt. But actually, they've now changed that there's going to be some major announcements very soon about that, so that there's no repayment of that debt. I think those little financial supports are absolutely essential. And number 5, we have said that considers structured support for airlines. I think the airlines are the juggernauts, so it's of the travel industry, and they need help right now. Airlines, which have typically limited liquidity, are the most critical economic enabler for a country and for the industry as a whole. According to the IATA, most airlines worldwide went into the crisis with about 2 months of cash on hand. If substantial financial support is put forward, governments need to focus on the most strategically important assets to ensure the region's future travel connections. In doing so, governments need to be sure that airline leaders develop and deploy a sustainable structuring plan, of course, to back that support up. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I am informed that Rashid Mansoori, the CEO of Qatar Stock Exchange Market, is already in. Rashid, welcome.
Hello, thank you. Hello, everybody. I'm sorry to be late, but there's confusion of the time. It's almost 4:15 here in Doha. I've been told the meeting is 4:30, I'm sorry. But I got the message from my good friend sitting on the other side that it's 4, so I apologize.
Okay, no problem. We just now listened to the precious information regarding the impact in a global scale that this tremendous increase of debt that all the countries were already in debt before the crisis arrived, and now what we did is just to increase that debt, and the future generations are going to have many challenges, the debt, the sustainability challenge, also the AI, and so many other challenges that just all this pandemic was just one extra input to all these already existing challenges. What are your insights from your role in the banking sector?
From my side, or is it to me?
What is your opinion about?
Okay. All right. Okay. First of all, I'm not from the banking sector. I'm from the capital market, from the stock market. Mm-hmm. So I'm sure the banking system here in Qatar are doing well, and if you see their result this year, they are doing also well. Yes, they get impacted like everyone. But you know, we have one of the world's largest bank, QNB, which is Qatar National Bank. It's one of the largest, and we have one of the largest Islamic bank like QIB, and we have two banks that they are joining together, Al Rayyan Bank and Al Khaliji Bank. So the story in Qatar is different. Of course, you know, Qatar is the one of the largest exporter of the LNG, and our economy is the fast growing economy. And before also the pandemic, we had this blockade from our neighbor and brothers, but it's already lifted, thank God. So I can travel now and see my sisters in UAE. And the economy was good, so it was not bad. And also, if you are following the stock market, especially our market, we were, you know, almost 60% up. I mean, of the daily turnover. And that did not come just like that. There was a lot of work has been done, and we've seen a lot of retail investors who's just sitting at home, you know, trading. And we've seen some business doing well. So people who couldn't travel this year in Qatar, they're buying new cars. So car industry was good here. However, you know, we were all impacted in the beginning of the pandemic, especially the first quarter 2020. We took a number of measures, especially I'm going to talk about the exchange, but I'm sure everyone, all organization, Qatar did the same. Number one, we took care of our families, we took care of our staff. We sent almost 95% of our staff home. So we need to protect them and protect their families and our community in large. So we said, okay, go home. We are fully automated. Our stock exchange, you know, run on very good system. And also during the last few years, we've been transforming our everything that's exchanged to, you know, digital. So we could work from anywhere. And also, even after the government eased things down, the children stayed at home. So they stayed from studying from home. So also we asked all the mothers to stay home with their children to help them studying. So that's other thing that we did for our staff. This is from social responsibility, of course. And if we look to our role in the economy, we are playing a big role in Qatar, you know, economy, stock exchange. We are listing the largest Qatari companies. We're still trying to attract some more from the oil industry. And we're having a privatization program that we were going to embark this year. And we have a program for family-owned companies. The family-owned company in Qatar, they are playing a big role in non-oil sector. And we need to bring them to the stock market. And that will take time to convince them to let go some of their, you know, let's say, you know, the company that they built 50 years ago. Of course, small and medium-sized company really impacted here, okay. But the government had a program of 70 billion riyal to support everybody in this situation, and 10 billion were for the capital market, and they distributed between different sector, SME and the others. And I think number one they try to take care of is paying the wages for those SMEs, for the staff, because we have a lot of expat working in different small and medium-sized company, which you know, their cash flow you know, depend on daily sales, you know, like coffee shops, restaurant, and other small size. So the government support this to pay at least the wages and to reschedule their loans with the banks. So it was very good plan, and it was very good. And also at the same time, the government was, you know, running other educational program for everybody, you know, how to be more efficient during this crisis. And from our side also at the stock exchange, we need to stay up and to tell all our investors that we are here, we're still operating. So we use a technology like Zoom to connect to everybody around the world. We usually fly 6 to 8 times a year to different parts of the world, especially to Europe and USA and parts of Asia. So we don't do that anymore, but we use the technology to contact everyone. The market was good. The index was going up. All the other, of course, the government took care of all the, let's say, of the situation of COVID-19. If you see the record of cured people, very low death, and a lot of good care of everybody. Unfortunately, we are seeing the new waves again here because people really went back to normal. The government eased things around, and the people going just like there is no COVID-19, you know. But we still, the case is still low, like 400 plus a day. I think they will control it. Unfortunately, today I had one of my staff that's working in my house got his COVID-19. Last week I got my first shot, so I'm waiting for my next shot. But I would say to summarize the situation, the economic situation in Qatar is doing very well. I heard that when I joined the speaker before me talking about the airline impacted. Yes, they are impacted, and one of the business that really hurt hardly, and the tourism. However, Qatar Airways also, I know they are impacted because of the blockade and because of the, of course, the COVID-19, but they stay flying and open a new destination. And I hope what I read in the Bloomberg is not right. I read a few days ago, we'll need 7 years to recover everything. I don't know. I cannot agree fully with that. I think if we can control things around this year, I think we will be up again sooner than that.
Let us hope, Rashid. Thank you for being with us and sharing your insights. The challenges remain, and everything that has occurred has made a tremendous impact in all sectors. But what we can do is to learn and to become better. Peter, what would you share regarding this aspect?
Well, thank you for inviting me. We've done a couple of sessions with your students related to culture change and how it relates to management and leadership and so on. Look, I have a slight. I'm an internal optimist, you know. And let me begin by saying this: I was in Shanghai when we had the SARS epidemic. Okay, and it was amazing how different the Asian mentality was to the Western mentality, you know. And I will talk about that a little later on, but I don't want to go there just yet. I just want to say for everyone here that much of my experience is in hotels, operations, setting them up, and also consulting. So a lot of what I say comes from that perspective. And if I can borrow from Biden's mantra, you know, build back better. I think what we need to do in the industry, and I don't know if it applies to every industry, that is that you got to go back to basics better, you know, because I think in the process of, you know, a year and a half or two with COVID and everything else that's going on, I think we really need to go back to the basics and just do a damn better job at what we're supposed to be doing. You know, whether it's serving customers, serving our employees, serving our owners, and I think Frank mentioned about asset management a little earlier, and so forth. The airline industry certainly is pivotal in this whole recovery aspect. The airlines are just decimated. And until we can get airlines to start flying again, it's going to be a disaster. The other thing is the vaccinations. The Greek prime minister here he's made a proposal to have some kind of passport that would indicate, the travelers that have had their vaccines. Now, there are all kinds of issues about privacy and human rights and all this other stuff. And that's fine, but there's nothing wrong with me having a vaccine, for instance, and I can travel throughout Europe without having to quarantine for 14 days, even after I get the vaccination. And there's nothing wrong with, actually, Qantas started it while we're on the airlines. Qantas started requesting people to produce evidence that they've had they're negative before they travel and so forth. So a lot of that needs to be ironed out before people start traveling, especially for leisure. The businessmen are traveling at the moment, I would venture, but the leisure travelers a little less so. Of course, in most places now we have winter, but that's not the essence. I wasn't really asked to talk about that, but I also feel that there's going to be pent-up demand, whether we like it or not. A lot of people just can't wait to travel. I can tell you right now, I have a list of 7 countries I want to travel. As soon as I get my vacation, I'm going to go to seven countries, different countries. So, and I have a lot of friends who are planning to do the same thing, and businessmen, holiday makers, and a lot of the industry itself is quite innovative as far as the hospitality industry is concerned. Okay. You hear about leisure and businessmen combining pleasure. The businessman travels, brings a whole family along. There's the staycation things. I think Frank and others mentioned about the new the new normal now, which the nomads, people working from home. Rather than the office and so forth. I have to tell you that working from home wasn't necessarily a success before the virus. In Japan, for example, where I've done 2 tours of duty, this whole idea of having open spaces where everybody talks, everybody socializes, everybody collaborates, really doesn't work. It's not a productive concept because people get upset, they get interrupted, they can't concentrate, you have all kinds of issues in environments like that. So, the word is still out on whether that is an effective idea. Then there's also, when you compare some industries, of course, you look at a hotel, for example, they can surely outsource. Outsource is a big thing. When I was I've done 2 tours of duty in Saudi Arabia. The most recently, I was in Jeddah, and we had outsourced our restaurant, for example, because as Frank knows and the others in the hotel, is anyone else in the hotel industry, per se? Well, anyway, I'm sure you will agree that in every hotel I've managed, I've had about 2 restaurants I could have closed. I didn't need them. They were superfluous, okay? And it was just idle capacity. So what do you do with that? What do you do with it? All right, outsourcing certainly is one thing. Now with the pandemic, what you have is that a lot of hotels, as you may know, are involved. They're doing deals with these motorcycle fellas that are, delivering food everywhere else. And you know what else they're doing? They have their executive chefs that cook gourmet meals to take out. Can you imagine? Would you ever believe that we would ever get to the point where, Michelin star chefs are cooking for you and some guy on a motorcycle braves the snow and brings it to your house? Okay. Well, okay, maybe that won't last forever. Okay. I think going back to this about pent-up demand and demand returning and so forth, I think is only a matter of time. For me, I can tell you, I remember when they went to the moon. I was at university, and I won't tell you the year because I don't want to give up my age. But, I thought the world was going to change. You know, I said, oh, wow, we went to the moon and what's going to happen tomorrow? Guess what? Nothing. Nothing happened the next day. And I think nothing's going to happen after the COVID. The only beneficiaries out of this is going to be technology. The communication companies, the Zoom guys, and God knows who else is going to come about, okay?
And hopefully environment.
Okay. I'm sure there's a lot of them out there in the process. But look, I just want to go back to this idea of, before I don't want to dominate the discussion, because you asked me to talk about some cultural issues, lessons that we could learn from Japan. I'll go quickly through that because I have to keep to the topic that you gave me. But let me go to that, and then perhaps I can come out during the Q&A. One of the things about Japan that, I mean, I learned a lot. Has anybody here worked in Japan? Yeah. Japan is an amazing, like everything they do, you see, they have a number of cultural philosophies in Japan. And basically, culture permeates pretty well everything in their lives. Kintsugi is one thing, and that basically is the art of fixing something that's broken. You see, in the West, when something's broken, we throw it away. Because we don't know how to fix it. It probably costs more money to fix it than to buy something new. And then nobody ever thinks about fixing anything. But the Japanese don't like to throw anything away. In fact, when I was in Tokyo during my first assignment, in the house I lived, there was this motorcycle on the first floor, and it was rather dilapidated. And I asked the lady of the building that owned the building where we were renting, and I said, whose is this motorcycle? Of course, I noticed it there after a year or so. Oh, she says, somebody lived here. She said, somebody lived here. He says, and I'm keeping it here. I said, oh, knowing the mentality, I asked her the next question. I said, well, how long is he gone? When did he leave? He had left about 8 years, 7 or 8 years. I said, you're keeping the motorcycle for 7 or 8 years. And you're waiting for this man, waiting for Godot, waiting for this man to come and pick it up. Now, in the West, like if it was me, I would have thrown it out. I would have tossed it in the garbage, for taking up space. But this is, you see, they don't like to throw away anything. They're like that with their ideas as well. One of the challenges I had, for example, and I don't want to get into the operational aspect here. I want to stick to the cultural, philosophical, but I can't help it. One of the things that we had when I was in Kyoto, for instance, we had an enormous challenge trying to get them to change to doing things better, to change, to modernize, and to do something better. It was extremely difficult. And again, it's because they don't like to discard even their ideas and the way they do things. They like to keep. Now, mind you, I remember when I was at university, we used to study about Japan and how fantastic they were, efficient in everything. Not true, not true. They were not efficient in everything. They were efficient in automobiles, efficient in cameras and technologies of that sort. But when it came to the other industries, the other 50%, they were quite behind. Okay, they didn't enjoy the same efficiencies. Anyway, so this kintsugi idea is a philosophy that it's basically the art of repairing broken pottery. If the pottery is broken, then they repair it, and then it's a new beauty. You see, nobody thinks of it as, oh, it was broken and they fix it. No, they think in terms of it's fixed, it's beautiful. It's a new beauty, something new. I'll give you an example. When I went to Kyoto, my director of marketing and sales took me to visit the Hodaiji temple. You see, in Kyoto, there are about 17 to 23 temples. And the big business there, besides Kyocera and some other companies, the big business is the burial business, the temples. And you have a good relationship with him, you make a lot of money. So I went with the director of sales. So, I wasn't all that naive, I, being a clever little fellow, I had done my research. So when I went in, sat down with the abbot, and this particular hotel was 117 years old at the time. I won't go into what it was like and how the aura it had in Kyoto. And in the Nihon Keizai Shimbun, the newspaper, they had written that there's a foreign general manager at the Miyako Hotel. Actually, I went there to rebrand it to a Westin, and it was the Miyako Hotel. So they said, oh, and then they wrote that there's a foreigner running the Miyako Hotel. And then my staff mentioned this to me. I said, this can't be true. Yes, they said, Mr. A, you're the first foreigner that managed a hotel in Kyoto. This was back in 2000. Anyway, to make a longer story shorter. So I'm sitting across from the abbot, and the abbot he was aware of this. He had read about this. And then he says, oh, he says, you are the new general manager there. He says, a foreigner. He says, and what are you going to do? What are you going to do with the hotel? It's like saying, who are you? What are you going to tell us that we don't know? So I said, well, what we will do is we will do everything possible to maintain tradition and modernity and harmony. The key word was harmony, cultural harmony. That touched his heart. Buddhist, the Buddhists, how they are about harmony, very important. Oh, he said, okay. So during the course of the conversation, I learned a lesson. You know what he said? He says, look, listen, let me give you some advice. He says, keep the old and add the new, but don't mix. Don't mix the old with the new. So I sat back, So it really was quite an eye-opener, because he says, don't mix it to create something new. Because when you mix something, you create something new. But if you keep the old and you add the new, you still have what you had before, and you also have some new. I mean, again, I won't go into anything further lest there be questions about that sort of logic. But that's the way. Well, in fact, I became friends. I used to enjoy the high tea with him on weekends. And if you ever go to Kyoto, go to the Kodaiji Temple, you will be amazed. Very impressive.
So Peter, I'd like to keep, from your point of view, the magic word that is in our case the kintsugi, that practically it is so well blended with what we are currently living. The impact from the COVID the cut from the COVID is so deep that we cannot overcome it just like that. What we need to do is to just remember and try to be wiser. And implement all these new changes in the remote working, remote education, in the environmental aspects, with the carbon neutrality, in the artificial intelligence, all this blended in a way that is going to be focused in the business ethics with the human in the center.
Yeah.
In this, is Michael Perez there? Michael? Marco?
Yes, I'm here.
Marco
Hello.
from Total is the head manager of carbon neutrality from Total company. Please share your view.
So, as you probably
Marco, can you please fix? Yes.
now can you hear me now? Good. So as probably you know, so Total is a major company in the oil and gas sector, and since a couple of years ago, we are moving towards integrating different sorts of energy in our businesses, and what the crisis in 2020 has provided to us is just to accelerate that move, because maybe some of you remember that simultaneously to the sanitary crisis, we had a crisis in prices of petrol, which, to be honest, was healing for many of us. So that has made that last year was a very bad year in terms of financial results for all oil and gas companies, and Total, we are not an exception, even if we did not that bad. And this has allowed us to accelerate the move towards changing our core businesses and investing and focusing in what we expect that is the future. So since I would say 10 years ago, most of the oil and gas companies, we have invested in renewables. So that's what we have been doing the last year. So massive investment in solar, in offshore wind, and also in gas, which is considered as a transition energy. But since 2020, we are more and more focusing in having a global view on reducing our carbon footprint. So this includes not only investing in renewables, not only providing alternative sources of energy, it supposes also to work on energy efficiency, so to support our customers to consume less energy than what they were consuming, and to also to improve the energy concentration in our products. So said in other words, to providing more energy with less CO2. So that's something which is very important, because I think that we are doing it very quickly, but probably we are not the only ones. And this is probably changing the way in which the energy sector is working. So that's what I can say about the crisis of 2020 and its changes for the coming years.
Very valuable information to know that we are making steps towards a greener future. Because in no other generation have we had so many tremendous challenges all together. Artificial intelligence, robotics, all these advancements in the medical sector, with neuroscience and all the different applications. I mean, even neuroscience in marketing is now used. In no other era have we had so many changes, but also so many uncertainties. We have unemployment and all these threats from the artificial intelligence and robotics. But I would like to say that wherever there is threat, there is also opportunity. Anna Schnekker, what would you share with all these opportunities, initiatives given towards entrepreneurship?
Well, thanks a lot also from my side for having me. And I think it is very, very interesting to have so many different perspectives on this current crisis that we're all facing. And I have to say, listening to all of the other speakers before, I feel like I might be in the most luxurious position as I'm working within the Berlin founder scene, and I think that the topic rebooting economy after COVID-19 is quite big and huge, and I will try to narrow it down and somehow mingle together the Berlin tiny little micro bubble to what could be somehow an outlook after this crisis. So first of all, maybe I should add that we really are from the BPW regional business plan competition. So what we see is quite a very kind of small angle of the startup scene in Germany, but then again, it's Berlin. So obviously it's also some kind of a trend barometer to see what's going on. And I have to say, we didn't see that much change. from doing that competition the years before to now, we were of course wondering what will happen during this pandemic. Maybe to give you an impression, normally we have around 300 to 400 competitors, which is teams that would submit their business concepts to the competition, but also to get a wider knowledge base, to get some contacts, networks, and so on. And in my impression, what we are now seeing, what we will need, is what we have seen all the years before too. So a crisis obviously is always somehow catharsis. So I liked so much what the other speakers said, like Peter with the kintsugi, and also what Frank Hoerl said about the whole app development, the whole field of what's happening in the digitization. But this is nothing new to us, really, because the luxury, and this is the luxury part that I want to share with you, is that within the founder scene, it's all about innovation, always. So what we see now is that I had to think of the horrible burnings in Australia a year ago, when the year started with those horrible field burns. I don't know the right word in English, but you know what I mean. And somehow this pandemic feels like it regarding economy. So what we see is that obviously old or current business models have to change somehow, because the disposition is different. The kind of the whole network, how companies work, is changing because it has to. But what happens with that, and as sad as it is that some things break right now, is that there is some space being created for innovation and for new ideas. And also there is this huge lens on fields where we need innovation desperately, and not only since the pandemic, but already since years. So that is what we can see, that actually right now, I guess in the founder scene, obviously there are challenges that they have to overcome, say financing, funding, etc., etc. But I think that should be covered. Actually, speaking from the Berlin perspective, the local government raised the funding sums for the startup scene. There were programs installed that were really helpful on different stages. But aside from that, it seems that in those branches that need innovation, when startups and new ideas came up earlier, let's say 1 or 2 years ago, we've seen so many ideas in the health sector, or also in the tourism sector, that try to rethink things, that try to rethink business models or how it could be done. And just from my perspective, there have been other challenges before, like there was some kind of effort that startups had to make, not to innovate, but to break down those walls that they were hitting, because kind of the old economy was like, hey, you know what? We have a winning concept here. Why would we need your innovation? That's just some fancy future stuff. We're good with what we have. And right now, what's happening is that obviously some of those concepts simply don't work anymore. So that is what I mean by there is some space that is created, and the barriers are down, because obviously we see it in so many fields that we need that innovation, and the ideas are there. So what we've seen within the current competition, as I've told you before, we always have 3 phases. So there are 3 different stages where startups could submit their concepts, and the amounts of concepts that are submitted vary. But what we've seen is that we just have a very small percentage lower in submissions than the year before. And there is not really a change in the fields. Like we're looking at health branch, digitalization, web concepts, whatever, platform models. And we don't see such a huge switch to other fields because probably we have seen that already before. So what we think is that the trend is just going on, and this is the luxury position that we're in, that we just keep on doing what we did before, because in terms of rebooting the economy, this is our core task, to help new ideas to be realized and to be stable and to be realized in the markets. So actually we just see that what we do helps fuel the economy for the future in probably most of the fields that we've spoken before. And maybe just a little side note, this is not significant, but we also had some submissions in the gastronomy or tourism. So there are still people who think of founding their business in those fields that are where you would say, oh my God, that's a red flag there, because obviously there are some huge issues, but still the ideas are there and the spirit is still there. The optimism is there to go through that catharsis and then build up something new within. And this is so beautiful what you said, Peter, within kind of the frameworks that are there. Like we're working with what we have. So that's from our perspective a quite positive outlook, I would say.
Exactly. This was
Anna, I would like to make a point to Anna's point now, that, you know, in my thinking, Anna, and I'm glad you mentioned that, I'm thinking in terms of it's more about rebooting ourselves than rebooting the economy. The economy will take care of itself. You know, there's millions of people out there chasing the money, chasing, you know, success and all these other wonderful things. But it's all about rebooting ourselves. And this is where a lot of the Asian philosophies come in, you know. So I thought I would just, I wanted to make that point.
But not only, I'm sorry, maybe not only the Asian philosophy, because I was so thrilled to hear about, for example, Adam Grant's new book, Think Again, which is basically what he's talking about, that we now, obviously, I don't think that he timed the release to the pandemic, but it just, it hits hard because, yeah, it's exactly what we need to do right now.
Well, you know, the Buddhists say that the answers to everything are inside, not outside. The ancient Greeks said that too, by the way, the classics.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, the answers are always inside, and it's you know, the idea that, you know, intelligence is what you know, wisdom is what you do with what you know. So now what we have to do is become more wise, because, you know, we wasted 2 years with COVID. You know, we might as well write them off, so to speak. Okay. Now, what was learned from that experience, and how are you going to put it to good use? That's what the wise.
You're also very lucky, Peter, because if this crisis happened, let's say 3, 4, 5 decades before, now we have the luxury, because of the use of technology and other means, to use all this data as soon as possible. And also, if you think that the 19th century was the revolution of the machines of the industry, and the 20th century is what we can call the knowledge revolution. Now we're towards a sustainability and a digitization level that we will actually have to rediscover ourselves and follow all the latest tendencies and trends that are in front of us. And
Sure.
Used to be something very, very important in management before, what we call change management. It's in our lives now. So if I want to keep one phrase, is what Peter said about rediscovering and repeating ourselves. And from what I see, I hope that we will not have another COVID-35 or COVID-45 in a couple of years. I hope not. But let's keep all the good things. And let's say that these are here to stay. And we need to rediscover and rebuild ourselves from now on nearly every day. If there is a message for our young students that they're
Sure.
attending.
I do. If I just may add one quick thing on this kintsugi, which relates to everything we've talked about. You see, it's really about kintsugi when we repair a broken piece of property, pottery, excuse me. It's like repairing ourselves. The key word is to repair yourself, or to restore, restoration. You know, a good cry.
And not to repair with invisible glue, but to repair and to have visible the wound so that it reminds us and we become wiser. Before we go to the questions on behalf of our students, I would like to close this discussion by saying that the magic word here is interrelation. Interrelation in all sectors, in all countries. This is what we learned from this current crisis, and it's not going to be the last. I mean, the climate crisis is around the corner, waiting for us and the future generations. So by saying to go deep and to be better ourselves, we mean to go deep and each one of us to become better by not forgetting, by having all these inputs and by using the artificial intelligence and the robotics and all these things that we think of them as a threat as well, but they also could be used as tools to help us with. So now we would like to go to any questions, Ankita, from our students.
Yes, so we do have two students who wanted to ask questions. One of them is Gaurav.
Yes, Gora, you can go ahead, ask.
Basically, my question was answered by Sumaira already. Actually, I had a question from Frank, but it was later answered by Sumaira, so I'm satisfied with that.
Okay, thank you. And what is the next question, Ankita?
So one is from Rafiq.
Yes. Can I ask a small question to Mr. Rashid regarding the major event for next year? Because the whole world waiting for the Qatari World Cup, and I know that the government and Qatari organization invested a lot in to prepare for this event, and because of the COVID, it's going to be affect too much this event. So what's the major solution to have a successful World Cup for next year?
Thank you, Akash. It's a very important question. Qatar put a lot of measures already for the World Cup, but we are looking optimistic for the next year, and we are thinking this will be over by next year, hopefully. However, there's a lot of measures. You know, we have the best stadium in the world built, and most of them are ready, and they are environment friendly, and they will be, of course, they are monitoring the situation, and they are acting accordingly. So they will not exaggerate. If the situation is normal, then things will go normal, with, of course, taking some precautions to when the people enter the stadiums. But we are ready for 2022, and we hope to see you all there.
I hope so, because I have been to Qatar in 2015, and I was seeing what Qatar built. I have been to academy expire for the sports, and there is big change starting from 2015 until now, and I'm really wishing to see World Cup with players and with people in the stadium, not like now we've seen only the players in the stadium.
Yes, I think we will see, inshallah, people in the stadium. And Qatar, you know, is changing every day. Even sometime when I leave my house, I lose the road because there's new things in the way. We are always, this very dynamic country. And if you've been here 5 years ago, I think when you come, you'll see a lot of amazing things, especially the new city they built, like Lusail city. of course, the new stadiums. I invite everybody on the panel today, please go to YouTube and search for 2022 stadium in Qatar or Lusail City. You see how much we are changing. It's a very beautiful country. And yes, it's my country, I have to say that. But also really a lot of things are happening and making the country prettier always.
But we know that you also love other countries, Rashid. You also visit Germany and Greece a lot.
Yes, I did that. I love them all, and I love your country a lot. I like Greece people, food, culture. Everything is great. Actually, every year I am in. As I said in the beginning, at least 4 times I am in Europe. But now, unfortunately, I can't wait to travel.
Of course, now we all cannot wait when the traveling will be back as we were used to, and to continue do the business wiser, as we said. Ankita, any other question from our student?
No, that's it. We don't have any other questions.
At this point, I would like to thank you all very, very much, and all the students for your participation today, all the panelists for their precious sharing insights with us. And I would like to be posted for our next Café Scientifique that is going to take place end of March. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Well
Thanks
done.
you all.
Thank you. Well done.
See you soon.
See you.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.